Welcome back, PNB Nation. Mr. Rico, and I am excited. We brought back one of our more popular guests, Mr. Juan Kingsbury, founder and author of Career Blindspot. Before we get started, make sure that if you are getting value from this channel, that you're hitting that subscribe button, hit that little bell, and give us any comments of any topics you're looking for. How are we doing? We do rise by lifting others, and you can help us to rise by sharing these episodes and give us some comments. Also, check out on Amazon our book. It's personal. It's not business. It's personal by yours truly. And that will also help you to identify how do we make business personal and navigate the behavioral network of business. So let's jump in with Mr. Juan Kingsbury. Hello, and welcome to the PNB Nation, where it is all personal, not business. I'm your host, Mr. Rico, and I will be your guide through all things people and give you in-depth insights, strategies, and the secrets to behavioral dynamics to creating a common language for understanding people in and out of the workplace. So let's get started. And I know that you've worked with leaders doing this and using these tools, not only interacting with their teams, but with other coworkers or other leaders. Talk to the audience a little bit about how can we use these tools from a leadership point of view?
Yeah, and well, the first thing is when you take our the assessments that Rico and I use, and I don't know if I've even shared this with you directly, but to me, the motivators of the leader is the sandbox framework of the culture. Meaning,
Yeah, go into that. That's a really good analogy.
And I'll use it a little bit. Won't get too controversial, but you work for the White House this year, a little different 4 years ago, a little different 8 years ago.
Right.
The leader doesn't change the entirety of the organization, but the leader's motivators and their disc as well, and any other factors, their religious beliefs, whatever it is, it's going to affect that organization. Like if I drive your car, it's still your car, but I drive a little different, Rico.
Right.
And so, but when you assess an individual who happens to be the leader, this is what the way they want the organization to be. And so now you start to hire other people or promote, et cetera. And those people very often are not identical. And even if they were, they do different roles. They're not the leader of the organization. Like, play a little game in your head. Wow, if our mid-level manager and our CEO switch spots, I wonder how differently this organization would run.
Right.
And so that culture, it starts with the leader, but the leader can only control so much, kind of like how a parent can control their kids so much, but you create an environment for them to thrive, grow, learn. And I think of it as the mission, vision, value statements of the organization adheres to, not what they say, but what they actually incentivize or penalize is the other bookend. And then the rest of the books is the culture based on all these unique human beings and all these various roles that have continued to change. And I'm going to kind of shove this in, but it's something I thought of right before. Watch Moneyball again. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a true story about how the Boston Red Sox competed with, or no, it wasn't the Red Sox, Oakland A's competed with the Boston other franchises who had way more salary cap to buy big names. And I'm mixing sports here, but I just saw this earlier, that the 4 highest paid quarterbacks all missed the playoffs in the NFL this season. And so a lot of times hiring becomes about title, experience, and that stuff matters. You're looking for astronauts to go to Mars. You probably don't want me. You probably want someone who, was in the Marines and a pilot and all these other things. But what Moneyball is so good and still relevant, I think it will be for the rest of the work, future of work, is their focus on how do we win games. We can't afford this person who could hit a bunch of home runs.
Sure.
But actually, for a fraction of their salary, we can get 4 players who could get whatever at bats or hits or throw many strikeouts. And so that leader, though, sets the culture. And I think it's Brad Pitt in the movie. He's the one who goes against the history. He's someone who what we would call low traditional, who is someone more motivated by innovation. Let's screw around and find out. Let's experiment, because right now we're going nowhere fast. and that ruffles feathers of the scouts on the team. So that
Who are
leader
higher
can,
traditional because they have a certain way we've always done it. And you can see
yeah,
it throughout the movie how they're arguing, but this is how we've always done it. And one of the quotes you say goes, well, where's that gotten us?
exactly. And that's but if you have another traditional boss, not to say they couldn't win, but they're going to play by the way that got them there. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that doesn't work anymore. I've heard this about, I think, wars are won by the first side who figures out the
The most
newest
innovative way
innovation.
of, yeah.
But the next war is then started by that, and that one's not going to be won until someone else. So it's not to say innovation is always right, but my point being, this about leader and culture. That leader sets the cadence, if you will, or the rhythm. But then you either attract the right people. I shouldn't say right people. You attract people who want to be in step with that. And then it's a matter, are you setting them up for success or not? Because I think there's a lot of really good leaders who attract the right people, but then, hey, you didn't give us the right equipment, or you didn't give it this or that.
Right.
But it's usually a big mess. But the point is, the leader sets the culture based on their own internal biases,
Mm-hmm.
and that requires a variety of different jobs, that operations, sales, service, um, but the odds are, this is where the Moneyball thing popped up, was like, we can get so focused on the people versus the result that we need. And the people will always be there to distract us and frustrate us. But when you have a good, healthy meeting, strategy session, whatever it is, we're trying to land on Mars. I always say that because you can't really mess around too much when you're going to
Mm,
travel through space and time in a silver tube that, high chance for death.
right.
But it matters. And that's where I think a lot of people lose track of, like, what is our mission here? We get caught up too much in the how versus the why does this matter? What at the end of the day, what does success or failure look like? And then we reverse engineer it. But the tone is set by the person in charge.
And this is where I want to kind of come back and condense this a little bit. When you use those motivators as a leader, you understand what that means, because sometimes you have no idea. It's a blind
Mhm.
spot. It is what you're naturally driven by, what are your value mechanisms, why you do what you do. And that's why you make the decisions that you make. When you're aware of it, and we go back to Moneyball, he may be a little theoretical, but the person that was giving him the information to make those decisions
Mhm.
was a higher theoretical. It's total opposite. And a
Yes.
good leader knows how to balance those two and recognize this is a blind spot, not to change where I want to go or to create innovation, but I got to surround myself with people that are different than I am, but are also understanding where I'm going. And
Yeah.
that's where all these tools really help you as a leader, to identify, where am I, what drives me, what are my blind spots. But then when you find those individuals, how do I need to adjust, especially out of my comfort zone, to utilize that knowledge so we can achieve that outcome? And
Yeah.
too often we end up hiring people that are like us, and then we wonder why it doesn't work,
Yes.
because we subconsciously, we are not aware of it. This feels comfortable. They're like us. We're going to have a great time,
Mhm.
but not always. And
Yeah.
so
Well,
it's really important to what you're saying, that when you take the time to better understand yourself, your strengths, your blind spots, how they work, but how do you attach that to the end goal of your job, the project, the business? What are the missing pieces that you need to bring on board? And then how do you interact with them so you can achieve that outcome? And these tools give that to you clearly.
yes. And actually, I'll succinctly wrap up my Moneyball thing. Even though you have coaches and GMs trying to win baseball games, we all know that's what they're for, especially if you're the fan. You're like, but they get caught up in the names and the salary. And the essence of Moneyball is, he remembered, oh, we're trying to win. And so what
Right.
has gotten us so far is far from winning. And we can say, well, we don't have the salary. Well, what do we have to lose? But even though these are athletes and it's all across, I always wonder, like, especially professional athletes, like they all get paid a lot of money. How can you have teams that stink for years, if not decades? Like, well, someone's still making money, but you forget we're here to win games. And, I don't think it's wrong when a player gets traded or this or that. It's, we're not hiring you because you really love baseball. We're hiring you because you're good at it. But we get caught up of like, oh, we're paying you this money for the name, but now we missed the playoffs, or we're not going to the series for the 10th year in a row. So it's like doing these assessments, because it's very easy for me and clients to be like, this is fun, and we're the people, and don't get I love that. If you can invest, but we're all going to work to solve some problems.
Yes.
And those problems probably are a little different in 2023 than they were in 2022, yet alone 2020 and before. So, these tools help us to reveal our bias and our strengths to actually solve that new goal. It might not look totally different, but it's going to be more realistic in achieving. And I don't want to ruin the movie, but I'm going to start saying that. Rewatch Moneyball. It's been out for like 10 years, but I think every leader who has Great Resignation or Quiet Quitters, I think that will get some juices going for you.
I'll give you even more real life example. The gentleman I learned around DISC and behaviors, Dr. Robert Rome, worked with the Diamondbacks, and they used the assessments to identify what are the key players we need in our organizations to win the World Series. And it took them 2 years, but using those tools, they found the right people and they won the World Series.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't want to get paid. I just want a ring. And now he has a ring on his hand because that's
nice.
Exactly the tools that they used to find the right people to be able to do exactly that. So these are things that you can utilize. So we're running out of time, so I wanted to wrap up with this one. How can people who are making decisions, leaders in particular, hiring managers, how do they know that the tools are the right tools, and how do they go about using them effectively?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think the first step is admitting, it's easy to be idealistic or romanticized, but like admitting what is the best that we can do. Not necessarily what have we done, but like what should this organization look like, be it in person or remote. And you got to make time for that first. And then when you use these tools, it then reveals, oh, that's why we're not there. We have let's just assess our sales team.
Right.
Oh, wow, we have a lot of extroverted high influencers like Juan, but this is a true hunter sales, and we have one high dominant person on our team. So by first admitting like, hey, we should be growing, we should be 80% new biz, but I guess we've been surviving off of repeat existing customers. Nothing wrong with that. But if you decide, hey, we should be growing by 80%, but we're just living off this 20%, the assessment's not going to change anything for you.
Right.
So once you know what your goal that gets you out of bed or matters to the board or whatever it is, then the assessment will reveal the lack of behavioral preference, motivators, desire, or just hardwiring. And so when it comes to what you say, not just as a business with HR employees, it should improve performance, but a subset of that is effective communication. And what I've noticed is most of the time, a lot of workplace conflict, it is personal, as Rico says,
Right.
but it's stuck on that as opposed to, well, Juan, you're biased, but you need to hit a home run or you need to do this or that. It helps you kind of separate the fact versus opinion. The fact is the sale didn't go out in time. The opinion is, oh, it's because Juan talks too much.
Right.
And so getting an assessment helps, like, oh, Juan's good at talking, but yeah, he talked himself out of the sale or whatever the case is. So the best way or the way is keep your eyes on the actual goal. It's not to say, hey, Juan, you talk too much and let's label him, but it is to say, hey, Juan, you're a natural talker. And this assessment and this, that, and the other workshops, but this job needs you to be way more dominant or direct or results focused. And so when you're talking, you got to keep your eyes on that and not wishful thinking. We need you to adapt. So again, you have to have the goal first. To me, if you don't know uh, um, what success looks like, assessments are going to tell you a lot about people, but you're not necessarily going to know how
Correct.
to put them in an order to win the game, win the war, whatever it is. And the I'll say this in a different way. What's the best way to use assessments and kind of waste your time is to just do a one and done workshop
Mm-hmm.
and have people feel unheard.
Mm.
You want people to, because one, they're going to feel seen with any good assessment, and that's a
Right.
really nice feeling, especially if you've ever had that. But if you can give that to your people, but then not hear from them, that you got your iPhone and then you just threw it away.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's like have that goal first, but then put it in with mix it in with, let's give these people an opportunity to confidently give feedback.
Got
Tell
it.
us what they don't like about the organization or what could be changed, but in a constructive way. And if you only make it about the people but not about the performance, again, it's not the worst thing. The people are going to get something out of it, but you're not as a leader, decision maker, etc.
Excellent. Excellent advice. So to recap real quick, guys, just like any other tool, assessments are a tool, but without a purpose, a direction, where do you add value? Where is the gap being bridged? It's a waste of time, money, and effort. And so if you are going to use tools, which I highly recommend, it's going to make your life easier. It's going to help you to be more clear, identify the right people, but also, this is where we make it personal, helps you to understand that person at a deeper level. It's like having a playbook of what to do, what to say, how to communicate, what drives them, what not to do. And therefore, now you know when and where to do certain things that allow that person to thrive. And then you as a leader or as an organization, create a culture where people want to be in. You won't have to worry about quiet quitting because they're thriving in their natural element and you are providing the things that are necessary. Using experts like Juan help you to debrief, utilize those tools, and to make sure that they're being applied to an end goal, not just for the organization, but for the individual. When used correctly, you're going to be able to use these tools more efficiently, save money, and increase productivity. So Juan, what type of services do you provide and who should be looking for you?
Yeah, I do leadership and team development, to keep it short. And I think that the people who get the most out of it are people who are struggling to adapt to the modern workplace. And I should say, their people are struggling to adapt to the modern workplace, but it's a two-way street. I like working with smaller teams or smaller groups within bigger organizations, but especially sales and service organizations or departments tend to conflict and not always appreciate either side. So that's a common one. But yeah, anyone who you really need, you're looking for, what does today's modern high performance look like? How do we get there? That's the conversation that we're having most of the time in any leadership or team development, which are kind of one and the same, because a good leader just wants more good leaders, and sometimes it's hard to grow that.
And he's being humble, ladies and gentlemen, but definitely one of the most experts I respect most in using the tools, but also passionate about the people that are using it and the culture. And that's a very nice, delicate balance. It's not just about getting results, but it's also how it affects people. He's an author. Check out his book, The Career Blindspot. We're going to have all the links to Juan, his business, and everything he does in the comments. Check us out on YouTube if you're only listening to some podcasts, so you can see our beautiful faces and all the interactions that we have. Juan, I can't thank you enough once again for being here. Thank you so much for your wisdom and insight. And I can't wait to have you back, as we could have 20 of these going on.
Oh yeah, you got it, man. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you guys. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you hit some comments. Let us know what you want to hear next. And remember, We don't do any advertisements. This is all about being personal and adding value to our listeners. And the only way we can do that is if you share that with others, as well as provide us with insights and continue to listen to our episodes. Thank you so much for being here with us. I'm Mr. Rico, and I look forward to seeing you in our next one.